Good afternoon, friends. It's a pleasure to be with you in what will be the last session of this two-day program. I'm sure it must have been very gainful in the previous 2 days, and this being the last session on telecom, IT, broadcasting, I have a very distinguished set of panelists and an equally distinguished audience. So I'd like to say that we have about an hour together, and I intend to start by some opening remarks and then request our co-panelists to give their respective comments on the telecom and broadcasting and IT environment. And based on a summarization of that, we will try to see basically a futuristic outlook and a way forward. And then invite some question answers and participation from the audience. Broadly, that will be our format for the next 1 hour or so. Now, in that context, I'd like to say that our telecom, IT, broadcasting sector is globally very well acknowledged. And as you know, in the telecom sector, with about close to 1,000 million connections and the fastest growing worldwide, we are practically next to China, the largest player worldwide, thanks to mobile connectivity. In IT, anyway, we are very well known as the lead player globally in the IT sector, and BPO and such other related services. And in broadcasting, TV, and entertainment, if I was to connect, Bollywood takes us again on a global platform. So all in all, this sector is a very globalized sector and India's flagship sector. And in this context, a governance system has been very well established here in the context of the fact that we have an independent regulator, we have a very liberal market policy, market-driven policy in what we call the National Telecom Policy 2012. We have a mechanism for universal access of funds. We have a well-laid-out process for scarce resources being acquired, such as the auction process for spectrum, which is going on, and where I believe the latest figures are crossing 100,000 crores in terms of the bidding. We have a pretty well-defined system for dispute settlement in terms of what we call a TDSAT. And we have very strong industry associations which are able to put across the viewpoints of the industry as a membership with the government and the process of advocacy. So all in all, one would say that this is a sector which has a pretty good architecture in terms of the governance systems. But then, in spite of that, this is the one sector which faces the maximum amount of legal cases, be it in the Supreme Court, be it in the High Court, be it in even district courts. The fact that it is a highly regulated sector, and this is a sector in which we find that the maximum amount of time is spent in the legal world. Now, this is something which we must pose a question as to why. Why is it so? And it is in that context that I would say that first and foremost is the question that there is a big gap between policy formulation and the implementation. Policies are formulated at the center level, and when it comes to implementation, particularly in terms of the infrastructure and the implementation of the services, they are all at the state and at the district and the local levels. And that is where there is a big gap in terms of mindset, in terms of an understanding and awareness, because these are all new technology and new businesses which have still not fully seeped into the system as far as the implementation groups are concerned, particularly at the state level. At the same time, for industry, this becomes a very major challenge of bridging the gap between the central policies and the implementation which has to happen at the state level. And at the same time, we are observing a very fast-changing technology environment where the new emerging environment is quite different from yesterday's flavor, where we were only talking of voice connectivity through the mobile. We are now moving towards an era of being data-driven, which poses in itself a situation where on the same infrastructure, the same broadband network infrastructure, it is now capable of delivering voice, data, text, video, and broadcasting. In effect, what was initially a single service-driven sector, whether be it voice or it is IT or it is broadcasting, now is moving into a converged environment where multiple services are possible on a common infrastructure. And I believe that that is one of the reasons why the legacy networks, as they move into modern IP networks, are also creating issues which are challenging from a legal and regulatory point of view. Also, it is the customer who takes the lead. It is the customer who's the king. And we are living in a world that is essentially consumer-driven, where he has access to affordable, latest technology products, an example of which are the smartphones, which enable you to have a multiplicity of services available in your palms. And it is in that context that he cannot be very much rules and regulations driven and forced by bans. If you take the most recent example of the Nirbhaya documentary, irrespective of a ban being placed, the fact is that it had a very wide circulation, whether it is through the YouTube or it is through other means of connectivity. Definitely, whether it's young and old, a lot of people had access to that. So a very, very controlled regulation may not necessarily be the answer. It means a more liberalized approach, and at the same time should be more futuristic driven. And if it is to be futuristically driven, I think the issue comes up as a responsibility of the industry. To what extent the industry can promote self-regulation? To what extent we can ensure that we ourselves behave as an active, responsible, self-regulated industry? And to the extent that we can do that, we reduce and minimize the number of cases which have to go into the legal courts. At the same time, we should have a policy environment which is fast and responsive to this changing in technology and in emerging global environment. And at the same time, ease of regulation. We cannot be totally rule-driven. We have to take a holistic view. For example, we talk of Digital India. It's not that we just create a digital infrastructure and a highway, unless and until we also have a clear policy path in terms of how the cars will be driven on that highway. By the same manner, we will have to take a holistic view on Digital India infrastructure to also include what the content will be, what will be the devices, how will the ecosystem be encouraged, how will the awareness be brought in. It is only then that a holistic path can be adopted.
Jyoti Pawar, heading the ELP practice in telecom, media and technology. I'm also heading the ELP Delhi office. Prior to this role, which I've been in about 6 months, as Umang mentioned, I was the general counsel for Bharti Airtel, but 6 months is a long time, and I have the present general counsel who's sitting right here, Samir Chugh. And Samir, please add. I'm going to talk about challenges as I see them, and I can see a whole lot of them. Srival's just walked out, but there's Neeraj, there's a whole lot of people in the telecom sector, so please do add. This is my perspective on the challenges, and also in terms of what I believe are the trends going forward. So, in terms of challenges, I don't think there's anything bigger than the spectrum matter that is presently going on. And it's timely that it's in the middle of auctions, and like Umang mentioned, it's cost about 1 lakh crore, and we haven't yet finished. What are we actually auctioning here? I mean, look at the spectrum that's up over here. We're talking about 300, 400 megs of spectrum, of which 90% is actually what the operators are already owning. There are cases in the court. This is something which is owned by Vodafone, by Airtel, by Aircel. It's 900 megahertz of spectrum which has come up for extension after 20 years, which the government has refused to extend, playing with words like renewal and extension, and there is no end to the litigation that is in courts on this matter. So much so that the auction results are also not going to be declared till such time as the litigation has, sees some light of day. So the whole auction process and the price that we are paying for it, I mean, I don't think the operators have recovered from the 3G pricing. And now we are looking at 4G, and then there's going to be that there's no end to this auction. This, by the way, is the largest auction in the last 5 years, last 3 years of auctions, which is the 5th auction going on. When we talk about auction-determined price, once you've paid an auction-determined price, do you really have to pay a revenue share also? Which is really strange. I mean, what is the government expecting the telcos to do here? You are supposed to pay an auction-determined price. You're supposed to pay a spectrum usage charge. You're supposed to pay a one-time spectrum charge and an AGR, not to miss the levies that have gone up and the taxes that have gone up from a 10 or a 12% recently in the budget. So this is, I think, from a telecom perspective, a very challenging issue. The auction, the spectrum, the pricing. With this comes the entire AGR issue also. AGR is, from the time it was introduced, has been in litigation. So we are talking about 12 years thereon. Multiple litigations has gone up to Supreme Court. Operators lost in Supreme Court, restarted the case in different jurisdictions. We are back in court again. So we are talking about 12 years of litigation in different forms, in different ways. You know, and what is AGR again? What is the fight about? It's about non-telecom activities being a part of your income and then hence leviable. That's the main fight. Or paying spectrum fees on accrued charges versus paid. So these are the various litigations in the telecom sector, and like Umang mentioned, this is just one of them. There are multiple litigations which are going on, and I think that's the second big challenge that the industry faces. The third big challenge is penalties. You know, for a small loss of 6 lakhs, the DOT charges you 50 crores per circle. So, you know, something which the DOT believes was a loss to the exchequer by 6 lakhs of rupees is actually the demand that comes is 650 crores. And that's just one example. I mean, you know, one can go on about, I remember the last figure was some 50,000 crores of just litigation exposure that the industry was sitting on. So these are the three big ones, and of course the M&A, I mean, you know, ARPU's falling, consolidation is in the offing forever, and in spite of that, we have a situation where M&A guidelines and spectrum sharing is still a question mark. So these are the top 3 or 4 issues, you know, that I see. In terms of trend, you know, it's very interesting that things have changed so much. It's become such a digital world. I went for the iTech conference recently, and I can see a couple of people here who probably attended the iTech conference. And before the, you know, 1 or 2 presentations started, usually you hear this thing that, you know, guys, keep your phone aside, go on silent, you know, phones not allowed. Whereas in the iTech conference this time, they said, please switch on your phones and tweet. We want to know the best tweet gets an award from Microsoft, the best question, the best observation gets an award. And hence, everybody in the room was actually tweeting, and there was an 80 or 85% participation, which is what, you know, it's a small example of a changing world. So what's the big thing to come? I mean, I think the biggest thing coming our way is Internet of Things, where thing is described to mean an object. Let me just, before I go on to a thing, what are we talking about here? Chips and sensors being attached, everything, as long as you have a chip and a sensor and an IP address, you can talk, you can be an object, you can be a refrigerator, you can be an animal, you can be a human being. There is zero human intervention going forward. Everything is going to be on the chip. A nice example is, you know, your keychain's getting lost. I mean, you put a chip on your keychain and your keychain's never going to get lost. Your mobile's never going to get lost. In the house I'm talking about. Your alarm clock is now connected to, say, the calendar, you know, and the alarm clock wakes you up as synchronized with your calendar. It synchronizes with the traffic and then says, all right, you can actually get up an hour later because there's no traffic on the road. So it's a crazy, crazy world which is coming up. And what does all this really mean? All this really means that there is a whole lot of data. There's a whole lot of, you know, intrusiveness in our lives. You know, one way to look at it is there's efficiency and there is, you know, a whole lot of convenience coming up. But the other thing to look at also is the fact that where is the privacy of our lives anymore? Where is the, you know, is the government ready to handle something like this? Are we as legislators ready to handle something like this? So Internet of Things, I think, is the next big one. With that comes the machine-to-machine applications. I think the next big thing is conversions, and I'm going to, you know, I'm sure the panel here is going to talk a little more about conversions because, you know, broadband versus telecom versus computer, all of that, internet put together. The other, you know, thing that I can think of is the whole data privacy issue, and I'm going to spend a little more time talking about data privacy as we go along. But I think, Umang, in my view, these are the 2-3 big things that are really coming up. And, you know, so much of investment has gone into 3G and 4G. With Internet of Things, I mean, is there a possibility of bypassing any of that is the question mark here. And for that matter, is our telecom companies geared up to change their entire infrastructure to just gear up to how the whole Internet of Things works and moves on?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sanjay. I represent Samsung Electronics. So like Umang said, we are active equipment. So in the sense, we make the equipment that actually radiates and receives radiation and establishes wireless communications. So we are actually engineers who try to, quote unquote, improve. And in that process, we sometimes complicate issues for particularly regulators, because we try to see things from our perspective. We try to make things advanced and simpler, but in that process, some complications creep in for regulators or lawmakers. So let me just take an example. I'm sure all of you have made a voice call using Skype, right? You did. So was it a voice call or was it a data call? What was it? And was it a STD call or was it an international call? Actually, it's a bad question. You don't care, right? But if the regulation defines that there is a STD call, there is an ISD call, I mean, a technology called Skype just goes all over it and it has no relevance whatsoever. I'm sure all of you have watched YouTube, and recently a certain broadcast was banned. So actually I watched the same thing on YouTube. Did I violate a law? And to make it worse, actually my television, a Samsung television, has a YouTube application and I actually watched it on my television. So did I break a law? So where is telecommunications and where is broadcasting? All these things are going to get very complicated as we move from what used to be 2G to 3G and now 4G and I'm sure recently now we are starting to talk about 5G. Actually, what is happening here behind the scene is that things are getting advanced and things are getting simple. They're definitely changing from an external perspective because now we no longer have a voice or STD or ISD anymore. Actually, everything is getting packetized and everything is getting converged. No longer can you say that this is a voice service or a data service or a video service because at the end of the day, every control is with the consumer and he does, what he wants to do, and it's getting very difficult to monitor it, mandate it, differentially price it, because actually it's nearly impossible. I mean, what is definitely possible is to legally intercept all communication, but I'm sure that in times to come, we will be able to capture the communication, but we will not be able to figure it out as to what was going on. Because, the part of it is video, part of it is voice communication, part of it is browsing, and things are becoming simpler and communicated at the same time. Also, the boundaries are getting mixed up. Like I give you an example for a YouTube. So was it broadcasting or is YouTube, when you actually watch a video on YouTube, are you browsing or are you watching television? And the answer is yes, actually I'm doing both. And very soon, I think it's going to become more and more broadcasting. So while we as a technologist invent new things, we go to newer and newer technologies, it becomes challenging for the regulators and not just to say regulators only in India, it's a global challenge that normally regulators face this kind of issue in all parts of the world. But generally in advanced regulatory regimes, the principle which is followed is have least amount of rules. Because if you try to have long list of rules, somehow or the other, technology will bypass it.
Thank you, Mr. Das. So I am the odd man out in this 1, 2, 3G, 4G. I am purely from Z, neither 1, 2, 3. So difficult to be a part of the last session because the fatigue factor already sets in. And there are more number of persons outside the discussion room than inside. But anyway, now picking up from what my predecessors, two speakers, they have articulated, in this telecom majority panel, some perspective of broadcasting I would like to give you. Every day, in your everyday life, as the mobile is an integral part, so is the broadcasting. Your day starts with the television and ends with the television, that's for sure. So just to give you an idea, we have got about 788 channels at the moment in India. And the total number of cable and satellite homes are around 160 million. And the total TV market size estimated to be in financial year 2014 was around 47,000 crores, which is expected to increase to about 79,000 crores by 2017. So that constitute approximately 0.5 to 0.6% of the GDP. So it's also a sizable sector. And as it been rightly pointed out, now we are moving towards a converged world. Now convergence, to my mind, basically implies two things. That you can use the same network to deliver different services, and you can deliver same services through different networks. So both the things are convergence. Now in this converged world, as has been rightly pointed out, it is very difficult to distinguish between whether it is broadcasting or it is internet service or it is broadband services. Now the issue there will always be a debate of regulation versus technology, and technology always moves ahead. Regulation has to follow. Now that has been the historical background of the regulations. It's not the other way around, that you first make the regulation and that the technology would come. It's always like that, the technology is there, and therefore regulations have to be responsive to that technology. Now coming to that particular aspect, what I would like to point out here is that now is the right time for the government to wake up and set up something what we called a convergent regulator, which would, in its ambit, would take care of not only the broadcasting and the distribution part, which is there, but also the convergent part, as is rightly pointed out, that is the delivery of video, that is the delivery of television channels, television content on telecom networks. So present is the right time that we need to move towards what we call either a communication regulator or communication commission kind of things, or a convergent regulator, because it is very necessary to create a level playing field. Otherwise the litigation is bound to happen. It will be inherent in that. I will give you a simple example. As has been rightly pointed out, that in 2G, 3G, 4G, etc., it would be very easy to deliver the video services. Now, in order to have a channel up and running, what you need at the moment is uplinking and downlinking permission from Government of India. You go to the Government of India, you apply for that, and a permission is granted to you. Under that permission, there are a lot of terms and conditions which are there. One of the terms and condition is that you have to follow the content code as to what you can show on the television, what you can't show on the television. That's what we call in our terminology as content code. Now, come to a situation where a telecom network is also able to deliver a video. Now the question is, let us presume that that telecom networks imports the content in the form of optical fiber cables or C cables, and then store it in a server and then put it on its network, which is ultimately viewed by the viewers. Now, as of now, no permission is required for the same. Absolutely no permission. Now, who will control the content which is being delivered on such networks? Absolutely no clarity. So therefore, so far as the content part is concerned, there is a disparity, because so far as the telecom or these converged networks, as we call, is concerned, there is a policy gap, there is a regulation gap which needs to be bridged. At the same time, the cable operators, for example, their cable networks are capable of delivering the broadband services. Their networks are also capable of delivering the internet services. So are the DTH services, where you can also give the data services. So there also, there is a regulation gap as to whether, in order to deliver these services, what kind of permissions are required to be taken, what kind of terms and conditions are required to be fulfilled. So for that particular policy and regulation gaps, what we envisage in the coming years, and that's the right time for it, is the emergence of, as I had already pointed out, the convergent regulator, which would take care of all these issues and create a kind of enabling regulation which will be non-discriminatory in nature, and both broadcasting as well as telecommunication in a converged network would ultimately move together, and so far as the customer is concerned, the maximum satisfaction would be ensured. These would be my opening remarks, and as and when we discuss further, we will come to the specific issues which are there. Thank you.
From 50 million, we have reached about 990 million in 10 years. This is because we allowed passive infrastructure like telecom tower, other infrastructure, passive infrastructure, to be shared with all telecom operators. But the fact remains, whether telecom tower, telecommunication tower, telecom falls in union list, and telecom towers are regulated by state governments. Whether telecommunication can be regulated by state government under list 2, since telecommunication falls in list 1 of the 7th schedule, is a question till this issue is res integra. It has not been decided. You take any state government in National Capital Territory region, license area, there are about 15 policies regulating telecom tower issued by various local bodies. So today we have more than about 4 lakh telecommunication towers supporting many operators. And if we have so many policies and each policy is at variance with the other local bodies, it becomes difficult for an infrastructure operator, infrastructure service provider, to comply with those policies of the local bodies. And it creates a hurdle for infrastructure service provider to comply. Secondly, how many clearances we require for setting up a telecom tower? There are n number of clearances we require to set up a single tower. It creates delay. Secondly, we see the state governments are seeing telecommunication tower as a source of revenue, whereas telecommunication is a business enabler. 1% increase in teledensity has got a direct implication on the GDP. Therefore, it should not be seen as a source of revenue, and telecommunication is a business enabler. Therefore, it becomes very difficult for service provider, infrastructure service provider, to comply with those laws. We have to take SACFA clearance, fire clearance, pollution control clearance, about 10 clearances. And in a state like J&K, we have about 70 policies, different policies for each region for establishing a tower. Therefore, unless we simplify, have one uniform policy throughout India, it will be very difficult for service provider to support telecommunication operator.
I mean, there are several guidelines on a worldwide basis, because this concern of radiation is not a question of, because first of all, the tower doesn't radiate. It is basically the electronics which, but the question is that it is viewed from a consumer angle as a holistic issue, that there is a radiation problem. I think there are several guidelines on this. The WHO has itself laid down very clear guidelines. And as was rightly mentioned by Swami, in India, the guidelines were being operated on 1/10. And after further hardening, it is now 1/100th of what is the worldwide guideline which has been laid on the. Secondly, it is in the non-ionizing zone. And many of these things are like misconceptions, which has been done by several, if I may say, vested interests. And that has led to the fact that there is a concern, which is a genuine concern in people's mind, that there could be a health problem. So we have done several steps, both the operators and the infrastructure providers. They have had several sessions with the experts and the doctors internationally. We have had WHO people just to allay those fears. Government itself has stepped in. They have also come up with several directives that we have to operate within that. There is a separate term cell which is there in every circle of the country, which is open to any customer complaint or this thing, so that can be studied and checked on the spot. And by and large, without exception, so far our understanding is that it is well within the limits. But we should understand that radiation per se happens from any such body, whether it is a television set or a microwave oven or a radio. In fact, the radio signal radiations are very minimal. So there is no real cause of concern. But of course, we should all be careful. We should see that we don't over-talk, and we try and see that the mobile device is closer to the ear than the tower. We should try and see that we use in a sort of balanced way. But that apart, there is no real concern that should worry us too much, because anyway, this is going to be a way of life. Thank you, everybody.